Hello once again. I'm Judith Richards. I'm the creator of TRTP, the Richards Trauma Process. And welcome to the podcast, I Choose. Why? Because we do get to choose. And sometimes we don't understand that. And sometimes we're in too disempowered a state to do that. But that's not today's topic. Today's topic is life patterns. Life patterns and what locks those in. Have you ever noticed that similar things continue to happen in your life? Okay, let me give you a little bit of background here. When a client comes for TRTP, the Richards Trauma Process, we ask them to do some homework, to list the top 10 to 12 most distressing events in their life, chronologically, and just not the story, just the age that you were, the name of the event and who was there. Not the story, not essays, just dot points. Nothing more. Nothing more than a few words to name the event. 3 words max. When we do this, I've had clients arrive having done their homework and say, oh my goodness, it's the same thing again and again and again throughout my life, but different people. And I've just realized I got this pattern of being bullied. It happened, perhaps I'm just making up a story here and one I've seen often. Perhaps it happened in the family of origin, perhaps siblings or whatever, relatives. And then it happened in primary school, and then it happened in secondary school, and then it happened at college, and then it happened in the workplace, and in relationships, and it just continues to happen. I mean, some people, you can send them to the moon, they'd find someone to bully them, abuse them. That was me. Yep, I had that pattern. I had it in a big way. There's another video that I've done about me. So enough about me. What about you? It's a really interesting exercise to do. Don't dwell on it for weeks and long time. Just very quick, just dot point notes. And there's a reason why those patterns are there. There's something that actually locks them in. So if you're recognizing that you have particular patterns in your life, perhaps of bullying, abuse, I'm really sorry if that's what's been happening for you in your life. Perhaps it's a pattern of abandonment. People who are supposed to love you, supposed to be there for you, not being there. Perhaps it's a betrayal. Business partners, intimate partners. Perhaps it's accidents. Some people just keep having accidents. I had one client who had been, as a pedestrian, he'd been hit by a car and a bus. And in his car, he had been hit by a bus and a car. And on his motorbike, he'd been hit by a car and a truck. I wouldn't travel with this gentleman if I were you. But it's all right. He doesn't have that pattern anymore, but his pattern was accidents. And some people have a pattern of illness. There are various patterns, but they're the main ones. Just take a moment. You don't even have to write down the most distressing events. You know your life. Forget writing down the most distressing events. If that's too distressing, don't. Just have a look. Just observe. And for other people, here's one. Nearly achieving success and not quite getting there. That's one I've seen a lot of. And things like never having enough money and getting a stash, as I did, and then have something happen, like what happened with mine, my little stash that I worked and worked for. And I was feeling a little bit secure, and the dogs got poisoned. And so they're in intensive care for several days. There goes the stash. Have you experienced that with money? So there are these various patterns. And it's an interesting exercise to just sit. Think, what's my pattern? And for some people, it's going to be really obvious. But what actually locks these patterns in? Because there is something that just locks it in, and it keeps happening, and it keeps happening. And we can get a really good idea of what the future is going to be like, because it's going to be more of Groundhog Day, more of that pattern. How's that working for you? Certainly wasn't working for me. So let's talk about, okay, there's the patterns. What's locking them in? Let's get to the guts of this. All right. Let me explain how we are programmed. And some of you will know all about this, but bear with me. We are programmed from even before we're born. We're taking on ideas of are we safe? Are we loved? Are we wanted? And then we're born. And for some people, that's a life-threatening experience. And then for the first 7 years, we're a little sponge. Why are we a little sponge? So that we can learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible, so that we'll have the greatest chance of survival should anything go wrong. And in these first 7 years, it's as if software is installed, just like on a computer. And whatever is installed comes up on the screen of our life, like as it does on the computer. You can't have a program come up on the screen of your computer that you haven't installed. And there are some programs that we put on our computers and we think that's not helpful. So what do? Uninstall. Click of a button and install something more helpful. Well, guess what? We operate in the same way. So we take on ideas. The software are what I call UCBs, unconscious core beliefs, some of which we're not even consciously aware of, because unconscious or subconscious, below consciousness, not conscious, conscious, we're aware of that. But sometimes we're not aware of these unconscious core beliefs. But we can see their trail by looking at our pattern. So what does that mean? Okay, so some of you have seen the other video about my story. So I took on, in my very early childhood, the ideas that I don't matter. I'm going to curse. So brace yourself. I'm shit, and I deserve to be treated like shit. I'm garbage. I deserve to suffer. I deserve to be punished. I took on these ideas because of my early life experience of abuse and sexual abuse. And what happened is it set up what is called in psychology re-victimization. The young child who's abused goes through life being the victim again and again and again, re-victimization. But why is that? So I can speak from my own experience. So that's what I know best. So I took on these beliefs when I was little because I thought it was my fault. And, you know, it's a really interesting thing. Gabor Mate puts it beautifully. Trauma is not what happens to us, it's being alone in it. I think that's really fabulous. I mean, that it's not fabulous that people get traumatized, but our early life experiences, and they don't have to be big T trauma, like, childhood sexual abuse or wars or refugees or living in a home that's a war zone. It doesn't have to be that. It can be little everyday, tiny T little traumas of being let down, humiliation, not being listened to, not being heard, having how we feel, get over it, dismissed. Can be small things. But what happens is we take on these core unconscious beliefs from people in authority, adults or older kids, people in authority will say something and it just goes straight in. We don't have a critical facility. We don't have the ability as a small child to go when mum is being she's come to the end of her tether and it's just too hard. And she's said some things that she'll regret saying. She didn't mean to say them, but they just came out because you put enough pressure on a system and it will crack. So mum's had a crack sort of day and said some things, and the little person doesn't have that critical facility to go, oh, mum's having a bad day. Finances are tight. There was a fight this morning. Mum and dad had a fight. And, hormones. The child doesn't have that capacity, that critical facility. So it just goes straight in. So what the adult says must be true. The other thing that happens is the little person's perception of what's going on informs these core unconscious beliefs. For example, you look at little children's drawings. They're fabulous. And they've got themselves in the middle, and they've got mum and dad and siblings and the dog and cat around. They are the center of their universe. They are completely egocentric. And because they're the center of their universe, things that go wrong in their universe, and how big is their universe? In those first few years, it's not very big, is it? It's basically the family, basically. And things that go wrong in that universe, the small universe that they know, they tend to, particularly if they're a sensitive child, blame themselves. Mum left because I wouldn't tidy up my room and I'm a bad girl and I'm not lovable and nobody could love me because I'm such a bad person. And these little people take on, and we do when we're little people, take on these big burdens, which then become these unconscious core beliefs. I'm a bad person. No one's going to love me. And anyone who's supposed to love me will abandon me, will betray me. And if a little person takes on those, I'm not lovable, I don't deserve to be loved, I don't matter, anyone who's supposed to love me will abandon me, betray me, will hurt me. It's not safe to love or be loved. And that little person becomes an adult. Imagine what happens. Because unconscious core beliefs, they're in the unconscious. Let's look at the difference, and we're going to go broad strokes here. Just the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind has been proven to work. Guess how much of the day the conscious mind works? 5%. That voice in our head, we think we are so clever that we're in control. We know what's going on. Nope. We are run by the 95%. The big guy is the unconscious. And if when we're little, we take on the ideas that I just said, now I don't matter, I don't deserve to be loved, I'm a bad person, anyone who's supposed to love me will hurt me, will abandon me, will betray me, it's not safe to love or be loved. If the big guy, the 95%, is saying that, and we consciously commit to an intimate relationship, and we commit consciously to make it work, to learn the skills of communication, to learn how to do this wonderful thing. And the unconscious is going, no, you're dreaming. It's not safe. There'll be self-sabotage. Not consciously. We don't wake up one morning and think, it's a great day to sabotage my relationship. We don't do that. We don't wake up one Monday morning and say, this is the week I think would be the best time to sabotage my career. I think it's time. We're not silly. We don't do that on purpose. But if the conscious mind's wanting to do something and the unconscious mind says, no, that's not safe, there will be unconscious self-sabotage. We've all experienced it. Trying to achieve something and never quite getting there and things going wrong. And this is what locks in these patterns. These patterns of relationships not working, these patterns of never quite achieving that success that you've been working so hard for, these patterns of accidents. And they can be changed. So for example, okay, someone makes a conscious decision, I'm going to get really healthy. I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to build muscle and I'm going to get strong and fit. That's great. Go you. Fabulous. That's the conscious mind, that tiny little 5%. But if the unconscious is going, no, for whatever reason, and it can be so many reasons. It can be, it's not safe to be slim and trim. It's not safe to be attractive. That could be one. Or it could be, you know what? I don't deserve to be healthy and well. I'm just a blob. I'll always be a blob. I'll never be good enough. I'll never amount to anything. It can be all sorts of things, but it comes from that first 7 years when the software is installed of those unconscious core beliefs, and that is the pattern that will come up on the screen of our life. I hope this is making sense. And good news, just like in your computer, those unconscious core beliefs, that software can be uninstalled, the things that aren't helping, and we can install the positive things that will help. And what will happen is the whole trajectory of your life will change. You won't have Groundhog Day, more of that pattern for the rest of your life. No, you'll end up somewhere completely different and you'll create a different, more positive reality. It's not actually rocket science. And that's what we do in the first session of TRTP. And it's interesting because let's look at identity. What's an identity? It's a group of beliefs about ourselves. And, some of us, someone will meet us and give us a compliment and we'll be, what are you after? What's your ulterior motive? Why are you doing this? We'll be suspicious because we're living this identity that's based on those unconscious core beliefs that we took on as a child that have created the pattern in our life. So for myself, and I know myself best, so we're going to talk about me. I took on those ideas, as I said, those unconscious core beliefs, that software was installed, that I don't matter. And I'm going to curse again. I'm shit and I deserve to be treated like shit. I deserve to suffer. I deserve to be punished. And that was just about every day of my life. And anyone could predict that the rest of my life would be exactly the same until I found out how to change those unconscious core beliefs. But that became my identity. Like by the time I was in my late teens, I would introduce myself sometimes as, hi, I'm Judith. I attract violent lunatics. What could I say? It's a gift. Because I know it sounds silly, but that's what used to happen until I worked it out. So there is a way to change those unconscious core beliefs. And it's amazing that when we change them, that we discover the truth of who we are without those ideas, some of them just plain lies that we took on when we were a small person. So there we are. There'll be more coming on that. So stay tuned and go well. Go gently. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Hit subscribe if you'd like to subscribe, and notifications so that you're notified when there's a new podcast coming up. Thanks.